I thought being a good father meant raising good children. It took me 92 years to understand those are two entirely different things. I'm Henry. I'm 92 years old, and I am telling you what I wish someone had told me the day my first child was placed in my arms, because I held that boy like a responsibility before I ever held him like a miracle. I had 4 children with my wife Caroline. Robert came first, then Patricia, then Thomas, then our youngest, Diane. They are in their 60s now, some of them, and when I look at them, I see decent, capable people who also carry something I gave them that I am not proud of. Not cruelty. I was never cruel. But I was a father of my time, which meant I was a father of distance, of authority, of the belief that love expressed itself through provision and discipline rather than through presence and tenderness. I was the man who worked and corrected and expected, and I told myself that was enough. For a long time, I told myself that was enough. The first thing I understood, too late, is that my children needed me to be a person, not a role. I performed fatherhood more than I lived it. I knew what a father was supposed to do, and I did those things with real commitment. But I never once sat down with any of my children and said, "Let me tell you who I actually am, what I'm afraid of, what I wonder about, what I love about being alive." I was the authority in our house, and authority, I believed, required a certain opacity. You couldn't let them see the uncertainty, the doubt, the moments where you didn't know what you were doing. What I didn't understand was that by protecting them from my humanity, I taught them that a grown man has no interior life worth sharing. Robert told me once, when he was in his 40s, that he never really knew me. He said it gently, without accusation, and that gentleness was almost worse than anger would have been. He wasn't blaming me. He was just telling me the truth. The second thing is one that cost me years with my son Thomas, who is the most like me in temperament, and therefore the one I was hardest on. There is a particular trap waiting for fathers who see themselves reflected in a child. Instead of meeting that child with recognition and compassion, many of us, and I did this, meet them with correction. I saw Thomas struggle with the same things I had struggled with: the impatience, the stubbornness, the tendency to dig in when he should have let go. And instead of telling him I understood because I was built the same way, I pushed back. I corrected. I lectured. I created in him an opponent rather than a confidant. And we spent the better part of 30 years in a state of low, unspoken friction. When Caroline was dying, Thomas and I sat in the same hospital waiting room for 5 hours, barely speaking. Two men who loved the same woman, who were made of much of the same material, sitting in silence because neither of us knew how to be the one to start. I started, finally, out of sheer exhaustion with myself. I said, "Tom, I was harder on you than I should have been, and I'm sorry." He looked at me for a long moment, and then he said, "I know, Dad, I know." That was it. That was 30 years of friction dissolving in 30 seconds. I think about those 30 years often. The third thing nobody told me about fatherhood is that your children are watching everything, all the time. And what they are watching most carefully is not what you say, but how you live. They are watching how you treat their mother when you think they're not paying attention. They are watching what you do when things go wrong, whether you absorb difficulty with grace or take it out on the nearest available person. They are watching whether you keep your word, whether you apologize when you're wrong, whether you treat strangers with decency. I gave my children many lectures about character over the years. I wonder now how many of those lectures were remembered and how many of my daily behaviors were. I have a feeling I know the answer. The fourth thing is about apologies, and I want to say this one carefully because I think it matters, especially for men of my generation. I was taught, not in words but in everything around me, that a father's authority depended in part on not admitting he was wrong. An apology was a crack in the structure, a sign of weakness, something that would undermine the children's confidence in your leadership. I believed that for most of my active fathering years. What it actually did was teach my children that adults don't apologize, that pride is more important than repair, and that when you hurt someone you love, you wait for it to be forgotten rather than addressing it directly. Patricia has told me she spent years in her marriage struggling to apologize to her husband because she'd never seen it modeled as something a strong person does. That one stayed with me for a long time. The damage a father does by example is so much quieter and so much deeper than anything he does by intention. The fifth thing I understood too late is that children need you to show up to the small things more than the large ones. I was there for graduations and weddings and the moments that called for a suit and a prepared face. But the Tuesday afternoons, the ordinary school plays, the insignificant baseball games, where nothing important was at stake except the fact of being witnessed by your father, I missed more of those than I should have. I was building something, always at a meeting or on a job site or making calls. And the children understood, or they learned to say they understood, which is not the same thing at all. There is a particular look a child gets when they've stopped expecting you to be there, a kind of settling, a recalibration downward. And if you watch for it, you can see the moment it happens. I saw it in Diane's face once, at a school concert she'd told me about 3 times, when she looked out from the stage, found my absence, and simply adjusted. She was 9 years old. She adjusted so quickly and so completely that it broke something in me. I was there the next time, but I had already seen what I'd taught her about what to expect from me. The sixth thing I want to tell you is about tenderness and how frightened many of us are of it. I was not a physically affectionate father when my children were young. I shook my boys' hands. I hugged my daughters on special occasions, the kind of easy, daily physical warmth that children need, the hand on the shoulder, the arm around them on the couch, the willingness to simply hold someone who is smaller and needs to feel safe. That did not come naturally to me, and I didn't work at it. I told myself they knew I loved them. Love was evident, I thought, in everything I provided. What I know now, and what I should have known then, is that children don't feel love abstractly. They feel it in specific, physical, ordinary moments. They feel it when you reach over and ruffle their hair for no reason, when you sit close enough on the couch that your arms are touching while you watch something together, when you say goodnight and mean it like you mean it. Robert once told me the best memory he had of his childhood was a Saturday I had almost no memory of, when I fixed a bicycle tire for him and we rode around the neighborhood for an hour. And I didn't say anything important. I just rode beside him. That's what he kept. A Saturday, an hour. A father who was simply there with no agenda and no correction. I could have given him 1,000 of those Saturdays. I didn't know that's what I was giving him when I did. The seventh thing is about the conversations I didn't have, specifically the conversations with my sons about what it means to be a man. I handed down the model I inherited, which was useful and limited in equal measure. Work hard, provide, don't complain, be steady. All of that is real and worth passing on. But I never talked to Robert or Thomas about grief, about loneliness, about the fear of failure, about what to do when you love someone and don't know how to show it. I never told them that a man can be uncertain and still be strong, that asking for help is not weakness, that the inner life is not something to be managed and concealed, but something to be understood and shared. They found those things out the long way, through marriages that strained and friendships that drifted, and years of quietly not knowing what to do with the parts of themselves that didn't fit the model I'd given them. I could have shortened that road. I didn't know it needed shortening. The eighth thing is the one I sit with most, and I want to say it last because I want you to carry it with you when this is over. The love I had for my children was always enormous. It was never the love that was insufficient. It was the expression of it, the daily language of it, the willingness to make it visible and specific and unhurried. I loved them in the abstract, and I shortchanged them in the particular. And what children need, what all people need, is the particular. They need to hear not just that they are loved, but why. What specifically about them fills you? What moments with them you would carry into any life you were given? I told each of my children I loved them. I said those 3 words. What I didn't say, not nearly enough, was, "You are remarkable. You make me proud in ways I never find the words for. Watching you become yourself has been the privilege of my life." Those sentences were true the whole time. I held them too close and too quiet, and some of that time is now gone, and some of the people I should have said them to are no longer here to receive them. I'm 92, and my children visit and call and take care of me with a generosity I haven't fully earned. We have repaired what could be repaired and made peace with what could not. We are closer now than we were for most of my active years, which is both a gift and an indictment of those earlier decades. What I know is that it was never too late to try, and I tried, and trying mattered. But earlier would have been better. Earlier would have given us more years in the repaired version instead of fewer. If you are a father, or if you are going to be one, I want you to hear this from someone who has had 92 years to think about it. Your children do not need a perfect man. They need a present one. They need you imperfect and uncertain and willing to say so. They need your specific attention more than your general provision. They need the bicycle ride on the Saturday with no agenda more than the speech at the graduation. They need you to apologize when you're wrong and ask questions when you don't know, and sit beside them in the ordinary moments as if those moments are exactly as important as they actually are, which is to say, the most important moments of your life are very likely the ones that look like nothing at all, and they are happening right now, and the only question is whether you are in them. I'm asking you to be in them. I'm asking for myself as much as for you, because I am 92 years old, and I know exactly what it costs when you're not.